In today's show, the Blazers get historic in a beatdown of the Charlotte Hornets. Oh boy. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen and tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're talking about a historic beatdown in Portland. The Charlotte Hornets come into town, and the Blazers beat them by 53, the largest margin of victory in the history of the Portland Trailblazers, dating back to 1970. Goodness gracious. We'll get into all of that and talk about where the Blazers stand. They're better than teams like the Bugs, and that might get real true here over the next week. Let's do what we do, though. Fastest recap in the West. Blazers win this thing 141-88. 141-88. They led 38-21 after one. The game was over. They led 73-40 at halftime, a 33-point lead. The Blazers had 27 fast break points in the first half. The Charlotte Hornets had 40 points. So 33-point lead, and it got worse from there. Blazers led by as many as 44 in the third quarter and led heading into the final frame 109-66, a 43-point lead. Yikes. And it got worse from there. The Blazers win all four quarters. What Terry Stotts used to say was a 7-0 victory that dates back to the old Continental Basketball Association days, the CBA, where you got a point for winning each quarter and 3 points for winning the game. A 7-0 win, or a 53-point victory, 141-88. That's your fastest recap in the West. The largest margin of victory in Blazers franchise history, besting the previous record of 50. They just squashed them. They squashed him. Blazers playing this game without Rob Williams, who was ruled out with a swelling in his left knee. That doesn't seem good for Rob. We'll see what his availability is like moving forward. But no DeAndre and no Matisse Thybulle. Who knows if Matisse ever going to play again? Although reportedly he has been doing some 3-on-3 non-contact drills, according to reporters. What Chauncey Billups told reporters at practice. Not something I would hold my breath about necessarily. But like the Blazers just squashed the Hornets. They dominated them. They dismantled them. They discombobulated them. It was over early. Like I said, they're up 17 after one. The game's over. Like just the way they were playing and the way the Hornets were playing, it was over. Toumani Camara was all just shutting down anything Lonzo Ball wanted to do. As soon as Lonzo gave the ball up, Toumani Camara just made it impossible for him to get the ball back. That ruined all of the dribble handoff stuff the Hornets wanted to run. I thought Donovan Clingan wrecked shop in the middle of the paint. He didn't have a particularly impressive. He had a lot of impressive box score nights that we're going to get to in this show. But like Clingan, he played just 19 and a half minutes because he didn't play in the fourth quarter. And he only had 8 and 5. Cool. Block a shot. Cool. 8-5 and a block shot. It's like, whatever. I thought Donovan Clingan was great in this game. I thought he was just so big and in the way. I thought his presence made stuff impossible. Mark Williams, who's not a great offensive player, but is like an okay pick and roll big sometimes. He couldn't do anything with Clingan. There was nothing he couldn't do a single thing with Clingan. Miles Bridges, who's had some big scoring nights, including a really big one earlier on this trip for the Hornets against the Lakers. He sucks. Dude sucks. See ya. LaMelo Ball goes 1 of 10 to finish with 5 points. The Blazers win every single quarter by double digits en route to a 53-point win. A just bonkers. Let's get into some standout performances, and then I got some other numbers I want to share from you. Anfernee Simons had 22 of his 25 in the first half. He got going a little bit in that second quarter, 15 in that quarter, and it's just like, yeah, he's making threes in transition. Shaedon Sharpe found him for one. There was another where he caught on the right wing and just hit one when the Hornets didn't pick him up. Like, when he is scoring in transition and the Blazers are scoring in transition, he's their best shooter typically, although there have been some nights when it has certainly not been Ant. But like, if Ant gets out and gets in transition, the Blazers are really tough because Denny Avdia is a really good transition player. I thought Denny was pretty darn good in this game. Again, he's not a super impressive box score because he only played 23 minutes because they didn't need to play the fourth quarter because the game was over. But 15, 4, and 4 from Denny. He had 2 big and ones in the first half. Just like the Hornets didn't have, they were not ready for his physicality. I thought a couple times when the Hornets were able to force Denny left, he made the right passes and just like right reads. When he got to his right hand, he finished through contact because he's a beast. I thought Toumani was great on both ends. This was a really, really good Toumani game. He finished with 20 points, 10 boards, and 6 assists. 7 of 9 from the floor, 4 of 6 from 3. When Toumani Camara makes 3-pointers at a high level, he moves from like, this dude is one of the best role players in the league to like, okay, so what is that? Like, what's that type of player? That's beyond a role player. This is someone who can like really shoot. He's obviously like the passing here is something to do with like how terrible the Hornets are, but like, when two plays like this and when the shot goes in, all of the hustle stuff is just like, it becomes icing on the cake for a dude who has like found offense. He had a sequence. He had a sequence in the third quarter where he had a massive dunk, and then he came down and he was just camped out in the far corner, and the Blazers, and he waved his hand early, and the Blazers eventually found him, and he gets the ball in the corner and splashes a 3, and it was like he knew he was going to take that 3 for 11 seconds of the possession. And it was clean, and it went in, and he shot it with confidence. There was a time in Toumani's career when he would pass up shots. He didn't always play with great confidence as a shooter on offense. That's just not a thing anymore with him. He's found his groove. I think he's had back-to-back, solid games. Obviously, it's a different caliber against the Lakers where he had a really good game, but like he was fantastic in this one. Like, I'm really intrigued by Toumani as a role man. I really, really am. I think it's hard to do because they're gonna play a traditional center with him, but like him and Denny sometimes will run a quick pick and roll on the second side. Like the Blazers will run something, it doesn't work, Denny will get it on the second side, and Toumani will just come screen for him real quick. And he doesn't even usually use the screen. He usually slips. But him and Denny, he reads that slip really well, and Denny's made some really nice passes to him. I thought he had some nice passes. I'm intrigued by Toumani as a role man. If you're a long-time listener, shout out to my everydayers, you've probably heard me say that I'm intrigued by Toumani Camara as a role man a lot of times. I remain intrigued. And then there was Shaedon Sharpe. He was good. And he was good in a way that felt like, I hope this unlocks Shea of the future. I hope this unlocks kind of the things you are hoping to see with him as he matures into whatever he's going to become. Let's talk Shaedon Sharpe because he was really good, and I got some fun numbers to know for you in the second segment. Join me there, won't ya? First, though, let's talk DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When anybody in the NBA scores 50 points in a game during this regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. That's noon to midnight on the East Coast. For my West Coast listeners, it's actually 9 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. It's all day for us. So if you watch someone score 50 at night, you can order breakfast as long as maybe it's more like brunch, as long as your breakfast can arrive when you place an order after 9 a.m. Or, say you watch a game and you get late night cravings. Well, you can do that too if you are a Dash Pass member. Plus, maybe you just, watch the game, but the next night at work, you want to use that deal. Well, you can get lunch on the go, or you can fuel your next watch party after you watch one NBA game. Get ready to watch the next one with your pals and save a little money while you do it. Sign up for Dash Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more points in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10. Just use the promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight on the East Coast, 9 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. on the West Coast. After a 50-point game, on eligible orders at participating merchants must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. All right. So I talked and I thought Denny and Donovan Kling were good. I want to save a little time, a little airspace for Shaedon Sharpe, because I think there is some consternation amongst the fan base about Shaedon's role, his playing time, all this stuff. And I'm certainly not talking down to anyone. I share that same sort of level of, hey, what the heck? Like in fact, on yesterday's program, if you listen to it, or Friday's program, the last one I recorded of these. I'm recording this pretty late on Saturday night after the game. But when I recorded it on Thursday night, it's like after the Laker game, it's like, yeah, what? Shaedon Sharpe, like, he's just in a weird spot. Why aren't they giving him more time, particularly when Jeremy Grant struggles? What the hell? And in this game, Shai just played the way you want him to. Let me be up front here, though. The Hornets suck. They're bad. So I don't necessarily want to say like anything that happened in this game is proof of anything that can happen in the future, right? The Blazers dropped a $141. They won by 53. Jabari Walker had 20 and 14, but he had 11 and 6 in the fourth quarter when it was garbage time. But like Jabari plays his butt off, plays hard, makes plays. Like, he deserves some love. He's getting in the show, right? Shaedon Sharpe finished with 20 points and 5 boards. But I think it was the way he played that I really liked. So he comes in and hits like a tough pull-up kind of behind it back midi. He hits a step back three. He hits a catch and shoot three deep over a contest. And it's like, you know, he's early hitting his shots, right? He makes his first 3 shots. And then I thought he got a little shot happy, right? He was feeling his oats or whatever. Like he was taking difficult shots. He took another step back. He took another little leaner type shot. Like he was in the paint with the contest. Like, it was like he was taking some maybe more challenging shots than he needed to. But boy, do I prefer a Shaedon Sharpe who is playing with confidence, right? And getting shots up than the Shaedon Sharpe who is just like, looks, you know, not like disconnected or maybe uninvested, I think is what some people try to paint him as. I don't read that with him. What I read is that he's worried that he's going to screw up and get yanked. Like, he's playing to not get in trouble, right? He's not playing with this. Like, when he came into the Laker game, he just wasn't playing with focus. He turns the ball over a couple times, like, right away. And it's like, with this game, he was much more precise, but then he was aggressive in his precision, right? Like, he wasn't careless and kind of awful when he first stepped on the court. He was like, I'm going to get to a step back jumper I can make. I'm going to take a shot, a catch and shoot three that I can make this deep against the clock and those type of things. And then he started to get into his bag and take shots off the dribble, and he makes threes in this game, right? He has 4 of 7 from 3 and 4 of 5 inside the arc. But like, he finished 8 of 12 with 20 points to go with 3 rebounds and 5 assists. I like the playmaking. I like that some of the playmaking is like, I think the assist might be a little overblown, but like, I like his willingness to attack and then make plays off the bounce. I think we've seen him grow as a playmaker this year, no doubt about it. Like, I just like that he was aggressive and assertive, and he didn't play with this like, I screwed up last time I was in the game. I don't want to screw up. Like, I'm going to be shy or passive or all those things. I think he kind of kicked that passivity at some point this season, and that wasn't his problem. And then when he had struggled, he was struggling just with like lack of accuracy from 3 and some bad defensive energy. But I feel like there has been games more recently as he has tried to figure out where he's going to fit in off the bench, where it's like, damn, Shaedon Sharpe didn't do anything that quarter. Like, he came in and played his 6.5 minutes. He didn't do anything. He's like, he took 1 catch and shoot 3 from the wing, but you didn't feel him. I thought you felt him in this game, and he made shots. And obviously, you always feel guy more when the ball go in type of stuff. But I like the aggressiveness from Shai. The Hornets are awful. So it's like some of it is like see this, do it over and over again. But to have a game like this where he just played with the assertiveness, it felt I don't know if it felt meaningful, but it was like a step in the right direction, or at least just the right direction. And we'll see whether or not steps happen when you play a team that is has won a playoff series post George W. Bush, because the Hornets have not. I don't think they've won a playoff game since George W. Bush was in office. It's been a minute. The Hornets, look, I grew up in North Carolina. The Hornets weren't a thing when I was a kid. I grew up in basketball heaven, but like no one gave a hoot about the NBA when I was a kid. And like then they're still like this. I'm pushing 40 and they're still like this. It's like, yeah, okay, maybe this whole Hornets thing, maybe I don't know, maybe they're going to get Cooper Flagg or whatever. They're going to be people want to say like karma is going to reward the Blazers for playing it right. Like, nah, the math is going to reward the Hornets for being terrible. Okay, some fun numbers here. I mentioned this was a 7-0 win, the largest win in franchise history, but it also improved the Blazers' differential from one of the bottom 5 in the league. They jumped both the Hornets and the Bulls with this win to move up to merely one of the bottom 7 differentials in the league. But more importantly, I've mentioned this a bunch of times, is that Cleaning the Glass has like an expected win metric where they say like based on your differential, a team with your differential would have won X number of games. And heading into tonight, the Blazers had won 23 games, but their differential said that they should have won 17.9, right? It's about a 5-game difference. The biggest difference in actual wins and expected wins based on the differential of any team in the league, right? They profile as a team that would be much, much worse than they are, but obviously that's kind of propped up by getting smacked around a couple times, and they almost never win by 20, but they had lost a bunch of times over the first half of the season by 20, and then they kind of got going again when they lost 4 in a row. A streak snapped tonight in this dominant victory. But the expected wins metric on Cleaning the Glass, with this win alone, it jumped by 2. So instead of being a team with a 7, projected to win 18 games, 17.9, they're 19.9 wins. A jump where their expected wins, they no longer have the biggest split between differential and actual wins in the league. That belongs to the Brooklyn Nets. Now the Blazers jump to 29th or 2nd, depending on what you want to call it. Like, this win pushed them much more towards the like, yeah, they are what they are. Like, for a long time, based on their differential and based on how many blowouts they had early in the season, and usually point differential is a pretty good indicator of how good a team is. It's like, yeah, I know the Blazers are 24 and 23, and I know they had that stretch where they won 10 of 11, but like if you take the whole samples, like they're probably bad. Like they probably shouldn't be this good, right? They should have won 21 games and not 24 or whatever, or by the math, like 18 and not 23, according to the Ben Falk's numbers. But now it's like, you win this game by 53, it's like, well, yeah, they don't have the biggest outlier differential of any team in the league. That's another one of these teams that's kind of better than you thought they would be with the Nets, but like has this margin for error when things can go south, and they can go south in a hurry. So this was a win that changed some of their indicators, like some of their big season indicators. That's how massive this win was. And like, I don't think any one game is hyper meaningful in an 82-game season, but I do think, generally speaking, point differential is meaningful. And if the Blazers have like a better differential when all's told than like 7-8 teams in the league, and they finish with the 7-8 best record, it's like, or worst record, it's like, yeah, it's about where they should be, right? Because this is kind of what it typically looks like. Okay, the Hornets are bad. They're bad. They're a bad basketball team. And here's the thing: the Blazers are going to play more of these types of teams coming up. And I think it is telling about where they are and what happened in this game. And I mentioned this in Friday's program, is that this stretch is the softest remaining stretch of the Blazers' schedule. And then it gets kind of brutal. Let's talk about this road trip. The Blazers are about to embark on a 14-day, 7-game trip, but two of those days are travel days. They play 7 games in 12 days on the road in 7 different cities, including a back-to-back in there. My goodness, let's talk about that, because it is about to get rough, but it starts less rough than you might think. Join me in that third segment, won't you? First, though, let's talk FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and an official sports betting partner of the NBA. When NBA games tip off, the action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the action at opening tip, even if you sit down like, well, game's already started, so I can't place my, typical pregame wagers. Well, you can get in on it on FanDuel, where they've got up to the second stats and play-by-play. So if you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback or a fourth quarter collapse, for my haters, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine those live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, gets even better for you. New FanDuel customers, if you're a first-timer, can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, still a pass first point guard, still Mike Richmond, still listening to Locked On Blazers. Hornets bad, Jazz bad, Wizards bad, Nets bad. Well, guess who the next 3 games are against? Blazers snapped this 4-game losing streak, right? They've played some Western Conference playoff teams, Minnesota, Denver twice before the break, the somewhat shorthanded, well, straight up shorthanded, missing Luka Doncic, who was pretty good tonight against the Nuggets. You're listening to Monday's show that I'm recording on Saturday evening. Luka Doncic, who was pretty good on Saturday night against the Nuggets. Still, the Lakers still LeBron James and Austin Reeves pretty good. And those are playoff teams. Denver, Minnesota, the Lakers are playoff teams. And the Blazers kind of got by them. They had certainly some opportunities against the Lakers, but they blew it in the final 3 minutes. No other way to put it. They blew it. And they kind of looked like a team on the outside. Because that's what they are, probably. They're a team on the outside. But they're better than these bad teams. Like, they were... FanDuel had the Blazers favored by 5.5 points heading into this game. They were... they were 5.5 point favorites against the Hornets on the road. And I don't typically look at... I'm not a big spread guy, but I was curious what it would be. And it's like, I was pretty confident going into this game that the Blazers would win. They're better than the Hornets. They've been pretty good at home, especially against bad teams at home. They've handled them, and they handled them. They beat them by 53. So they start this kind of epic 7-gamer on the road at Utah, at Washington, at Brooklyn, and then at Cleveland, second night of a back-to-back against a lowly Philly team, but second night of a back-to-back on the road, your 5th game of a 7-game road trip. Ugh. Then Boston, at OKC to come home. It's like 3 of the 4 best teams in the league. The only easy game on the back half of the trip is Philly, second night of a back-to-back. That's a brutal, brutal trip. But it starts at Utah a Monday evening, as you're listening to this. This is going to come out Sunday, but Monday evening, they play Utah. Then, travel cross country at the Wizards, who are bad, and at the Nets, who are like feisty but not good, not a good basketball team. They did beat the Blazers in Portland earlier this year, so like you know the deal. But like I mentioned on the previous program that I recorded here, I do this 5 days a week wherever you get podcasts, and also on YouTube. Thanks for listening. That like this stretch, Charlotte, Utah, Washington, Brooklyn. It's like, if they go 3-1 or 4-0 in this stretch, then you can start talking about dreams of the play-in. I think it's still a little too distant to be likely, and I've kind of maintained that even when they were ripping off games, that I thought it was just too many teams in the way. It's not just the number of games, too many teams. Although there was a time when they were only 2.5 games out of 8th, and it's like, well, maybe they'll just keep on winning, but like. Just the sheer number of teams. It's not like you need one team to totally beat Garbaggio. You need several, or at least 2. You probably need 2 teams to like really bite it down the stretch of the season. And while the Kings are definitely candidate to do so, I think, and certainly maybe the Suns are too. So maybe they'll get exactly what they need. They would still have to win a bunch, and they'd have to probably go something like basically a shade over 500 to have a legitimate chance at it, and that just seems unlikely over a 27 game stretch, just like based on who they've been over the course of the entire season. But certainly they were playing a lot better. But it's like they're better than Charlotte. They're probably, depending on who's available for Utah, straight up better than Utah. I think they're better than Washington, and Brooklyn's hard to know. I think the Blazers are more talented than the Nets. There's a chance they're staring at a 4-game winning streak again, and then they go on the rest of this road trip, and it gets like really sobering, and you kind of come crashing down. But I do maintain that I don't think there is much to be gained from finishing with the 11th best record in the Western Conference. I don't think there is much to be gained. But I will say this. I will never argue with anyone who says that winning is the point of basketball and that the Blazers should go try to win some games because there is intrinsic value down the line of playing competitive basketball for a team. I don't subscribe to that. But I will never argue with anyone who believes that. In fact, a fellow media member at the game earlier this week was kind of pitching that to me. It's like the Blazers should go for it. I was like, no, they probably shouldn't. They probably should get with the losing. But like, if they're gonna play their guys, if Denny's gonna play and Tumani's gonna play, if they're gonna get positive minutes from Shaedon Sharpe off the bench. Scoot Henderson totally fine in this game. If they're gonna get minutes, mostly positive minutes from their youngsters, and it's not just like Jeremy Grant going 1 of 12 and playing. He only played like 31 minutes against the Lakers. He didn't play that much. He just was really bad. But like, if it doesn't feel like that, then I can't really begrudge them for like not totally faking injuries. I think the decisions they've made over the last year have kind of put them in this like weird spot. But like, if they were to rip off 4 in a row, I'm not gonna cry foul. I just think it speaks to the strange place they are. Probably not good enough to catch the bottom of the Western Conference and make the play-in. And if they do make the play-in, what's the reward? Playing Oklahoma City in the playoffs? That's cool. Playoffs will be cool. But like, the Thunder is quite a quest. That's quite a quest. But I don't think you could, like, you'd have to also win like 2 road play-in games to get there. It'd be hard. So like, it is, I guess that you could, if you really are a real believer, you say 9th. I have to win a home play-in game and then a road play-in game to make the playoffs. But like, it wouldn't surprise me if they beat Utah, beat Washington, beat Brooklyn. It wouldn't surprise me if they go on the road. It wouldn't surprise me either if they go 1-2 in that stretch, quite frankly. But like, they went in, even 53-point win notwithstanding against the Hornets, I felt like they were going to win this game because they're better than them, and particularly at home, they were just better than Charlotte is, and they showed that. I think they have the growth that Tumani's had this year, the sort of consistency and versatility that Denny brings pretty much every night, and the hit or miss production from the slightly older veterans in Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant. I guess Jeremy Grant's like 5 years older than Ant. They're like separate entities. But like, if you get a good night from one of those dudes, and increasingly it's only going to be Anthony Simons, who's capable of having those good nights. You're liable to beat the bad teams. The Blazers are better than the bad teams. The question that I might ask, and I will ask at some point, is there much value in being better than the bad teams? But for now, for where they sit here as we head at the end of February, I say like, they got a pretty legit shot at winning putting together another 4-game win streak. We'll see what happens. Tough trip on the road. I don't think this is make or break. I think painting it like this is a make or break, it's just like, it's corny and stupid. What this is like a road trip that is really hard and is easy up front and nearly impossible in the back half. If they win these first 3 games, we'll talk about the position they're in. If they go 1-2, we'll talk about their position, and it's what we do. But I don't think like if they get thrashed the back half of this trip like you expect them to, it is particularly meaningful. if they do win some of these very hard road games, then we'll talk. Then we can start talking about looking up the standings and all that. But I think like the most likely scenario here is that they wake up when they get back to Portland and March 7th or March 8th, I guess, is when they're going to fly back. When they get back to Portland on March 8th, they're still 4.5 games out of the play-in, and then it's you kind of have to figure out what is the plan for the remainder of the season. But I think, they didn't pull the plug until relatively late last year. They were just good old-fashioned terrible. This year, they're just like good old-fashioned better than the bad teams, not as good as the good teams. And they're kind of playing themselves right into the top of the bottom of the top. And I think that is exactly where this thing is headed. And I think this road trip is going to be a perfect encapsulation of that, where they're probably better than the bad teams and not nearly as good as the top ones. It's not a make or break season. It is a magnify the situation season, but I'd be curious to be wrong on this one. That is going to do it for today's program. This one's coming out Sunday. Monday, they play the Jazz. We'll talk about that when it happens, the beginning of a road trip. 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.